I never imagined I'd be the kind of person to confess something like this. Even saying the words out loud makes my skin prickle with guilt and shame. But sometimes the truth has a way of clawing its way out, no matter how hard you try to bury it. It started one ordinary night. The house was quiet, and I had convinced myself that loneliness was just part of the marriage I had chosen. My husband was either working late or too exhausted to notice me when he was home. I told myself I was fine. That I could live with being invisible. But the truth? I was starving for something more: attention, touch, passion. And that's when he came into my life. It wasn't supposed to happen. He was just someone I crossed paths with, someone who made me laugh, someone who reminded me of who I used to be before life turned into this endless cycle of waiting and pretending. At first, it was harmless: coffee breaks, casual conversations, little jokes no one else would understand. But then the looks lingered longer. The space between us started to feel like a spark ready to catch fire. I should have stopped it. I should have walked away. But I didn't. Because deep down, I craved it. That night, when it finally happened, I heard myself whisper words I never thought would leave my lips: "Take it easy. I'm coming twice." And in that single moment, I knew I had crossed a line I could never uncross. The moments leading up to it were a blur, and yet every second is etched into me like a scar I can't erase. We were alone, and the air between us felt charged, heavy, dangerous. I remember the way his hand brushed against mine, so subtle, but enough to send a rush through my body I hadn't felt in years. I should have pulled back. Instead, I froze, and then leaned in. It didn't feel like a choice anymore. It felt inevitable. His lips were on mine before I even realized what I was doing. Soft at first, testing, almost hesitant. But when I didn't stop him, when I gave in with a trembling breath, everything changed. The kiss deepened, hungry, desperate, like we had both been holding back for too long. My heart pounded so loud I thought it would drown out the sound of my own thoughts. I told myself it was wrong, that I had to stop. But the truth? My body didn't want to stop. When he pulled me closer, I whispered those words, half in shock, half in surrender: "Take it easy. I'm coming twice." He smiled against my lips, like he knew exactly what I meant, like he had been waiting for me to finally say it. Every touch after that felt like fire on my skin, and with each moment, guilt and pleasure tangled so tightly together I couldn't tell them apart anymore. For the first time in years, I felt alive. And that terrified me as much as it thrilled me. The more I let myself sink into it, the harder it became to think about anything else. Every time his hands traced my skin, the world outside ceased to exist. My husband, my marriage, the life I had built over the years, all of it faded into the background like a half-remembered dream. But guilt was never far. It lurked in the corners of my mind, whispering reminders of who I was supposed to be. A wife. A woman who once vowed loyalty. And yet, in that moment, loyalty felt like a chain I had been carrying for far too long. When he looked at me, I didn't see judgment. I didn't see guilt. I saw hunger and desire, and worse, I saw recognition. Like he understood a part of me my husband hadn't touched in years. Every kiss, every gasp, every shiver was proof that I was crossing into dangerous territory, and still, I couldn't pull back. There was a moment when he slowed, pulling back just enough to search my eyes. His breath was unsteady, his hands trembling slightly as if he was asking me silently if this was what I really wanted. And instead of saying no, instead of stopping, I whispered again, this time louder, more certain: "Take it easy. I'm coming twice." The way he reacted told me everything. He knew I was his in that moment, and nothing, not my vows, not my conscience, was strong enough to pull me back. The line had been crossed. And there was no going back. When it was finally over, the room felt different, like the walls themselves were holding my secret. I lay there, breathless, my body trembling from what I had just done, from what I had just become. The thrill was undeniable. My pulse still raced, my skin still burned, but beneath it all was something heavier. Shame. I turned my head and saw him watching me, his expression unreadable. There was no regret in his eyes, no hesitation. Only a quiet satisfaction, like he had known this would happen all along. But for me, the reality came crashing down in waves. I had crossed the line. I had spoken words I could never take back. I had surrendered to something I knew was forbidden. I tried to laugh it off, to pretend it was just a moment of weakness, but the sound died in my throat. There was nothing casual about what had happened. When I stood to leave, my legs shook, and the silence between us grew thick. He reached out, touched my hand gently, and whispered, "You don't have to be afraid. No one has to know." But I already knew the truth, I would know. Even if the world never found out, I would carry this night with me forever. And every time I closed my eyes, I would hear my own voice echoing back at me, "Take it easy. I'm coming twice." When I walked back into my own house, everything felt wrong. The lights were low, the same family pictures lined the hallway, and the faint smell of my husband's cologne still clung to the couch where he usually sat. But I wasn't the same. I stood in the doorway, clutching my bag, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. I had crossed a line I could never uncross, and now I had to play the role of the loyal wife while carrying a truth that burned me from the inside. My husband looked up from the television and smiled. "Long day?" he asked casually, as if nothing in the world had changed. I forced a nod, my voice barely steady. "Yeah, just tired." Tired. That was my excuse. But the truth was, I wasn't tired, I was guilty. As I sat beside him, I felt the warmth of his arm against mine, a comfort that once meant everything to me. Now it felt like a spotlight, exposing the betrayal I was trying so hard to bury. He leaned over and kissed my cheek, and I froze. My mind screamed with the memory of another man's lips, another man's touch, another man's whisper. I wanted to tell myself it was a mistake, that it wouldn't happen again. But the worst part? A part of me didn't regret it. A part of me craved it again. And that's when I realized, the most dangerous lies aren't the ones we tell others. They're the ones we tell ourselves. The days after that night were a blur of pretending. I laughed at my husband's jokes, cooked dinner like always, folded laundry while the TV played in the background. On the surface, nothing had changed. But inside, I was unraveling. Every glance felt like a test. Did he know? Could he sense it? Sometimes I swore he was watching me more closely, searching my face for something I didn't want him to see. I told myself to bury it, to let that night fade into the shadows of my memory. But it wasn't fading. It was haunting me. Every ping of my phone made my heart jump. Every time I saw his name flash on the screen, it was like pouring gasoline on a fire I couldn't put out. One afternoon, while my husband was at work, a message appeared, "Can't stop thinking about you. When can I see you again?" My hand shook as I read it. I should have deleted it, blocked him, ended it right there. But I didn't. I stared at the words, and a part of me, weak, reckless, hungry, wanted to answer. I told myself I was in control, that no one would ever know, that it could stay our secret. But secrets have a way of growing louder, heavier, until they demand to be heard. And deep down, I knew, this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I told myself I could keep living two lives, that I could be the faithful wife at home and the reckless, alive version of myself in secret. But lies don't stay buried forever. It started small. I slipped once, called my husband by the wrong name. He laughed it off, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. He noticed. Then there were the nights I came home late, the excuses I rehearsed in my head before walking through the door. He listened, nodded, but I knew he didn't fully believe me anymore. And still, I couldn't stop. The messages kept coming, the secret meetings, the whispers in the dark. Every time I heard myself say those words, "Take it easy. I'm coming twice," they carried me further from the woman I used to be. But eventually, the guilt grew louder than the thrill. One night, staring at my husband while he slept peacefully beside me, it hit me, I had destroyed the very foundation of the life we built. Even if he never found out, I knew. And that was enough to make me feel like a stranger in my own skin. So I stand here now, confessing, not to ask for forgiveness, but because silence has been eating me alive. This is my truth. This is my betrayal. And it all began with a whisper I can never take back. Take it easy. I'm coming twice. If you felt the weight of this story, don't forget to hit subscribe to Broken Trust Diaries. More untold true confessions and raw infidelity stories are waiting for you.